Alright guys, Wes here, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, Ghost of Tsushima is an open world samurai game that was developed by Sucker Punch Production, and it released all the way back in 2020 on the PlayStation 4. Well, ever since then, fans have been begging for a sequel and of course a PC port. But what if I told you that the Ghost could be returning earlier than expected? Now, despite Sony still not officially confirming the existence of Ghost of Tsushima 2, there is a ton of evidence to support its existence, and it seems like every month that passes, it brings us new information from around the industry that Sony and Sucker Punch are actively cooking up something truly incredible. Where is the story taking us for Ghost of Tsushima 2? What is the gameplay going to be like? And when will we finally get the reveal and release date? Check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's get started. So I'd like to start this video off with a bit of a hot take. Ghost of Tsushima 1 was the best Sony game of the PlayStation 4 generation by a small margin, but it was still, in my opinion, the best. Sucker Punch Productions had already made a name for themselves with games like Sly Cooper and Infamous, but Ghost of Tsushima was on another level. It featured a unique take on open world gameplay and some of the coolest visuals in gaming history. The beautiful Japanese aesthetic, the minimal user interface, and by far the most unique way of navigating a game world utilizing the wind. Ghost of Tsushima is a beautiful game, but it was also perfectly complemented by the combat that was insanely satisfying, with a story that had the perfect blend of high octane action and the slower, more emotional moments that made action feel more impactful. The PS4 era was full of great first party games, but I truly believe Ghost of Tsushima was one of the best out of them all, and I seriously can't wait to see what Sucker Punch brings to the table with the follow-up. Despite the lack of official updates from Sony or Sucker Punch, we know for a fact that the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima is in development, and it's been for quite some time. Ghost of Tsushima 2 has essentially been confirmed through a number of job postings by Sucker Punch Productions, and on top of that, a number of trusted gaming insiders have stated that the game exists, and Sony has been sitting on the reveal for some reason, most likely to align with schedules. However, the game started production pretty much in the tail end of the global situation. But according to trusted gaming insiders, the game is pretty much ready. Obviously, take that one with a grain of salt, but from the sounds of it, the game will be much further into development by the time it's announced than most other first-party Sony games are at their respective announcements. But we'll dive more into the reasoning for that later on in the video. No matter how much evidence there is for Ghost of Tsushima 2, there's one thing that can't be denied. Sony really needs to announce some first-party games soon, because their pipeline is looking super dry, especially coming off of the Insomniac hack that happened recently, which that data breach confirmed several Marvel games coming to the PS5, but none of them are supposed to drop before 2025, and the highly anticipated Wolverine game has been pushed back to 2026. Naughty Dog has also canceled their upcoming Last of Us Factions game, so that studio is at least another 3 years away from releasing another single-player game. Santa Monica Studios is working on God of War 6 as well as a new IP, but neither of those games are going to see the light of day before 2026 as well, and that's at the very earliest. Overall, Sony just doesn't have as much first-party content confirmed right now. However, they could confirm a bunch of first-party games in the near future, especially now that Insomniac's timeline has been exposed by the big December 2023 hack. But a lot of PlayStation fans like myself have been getting frustrated at the lack of first-party content in the pipeline, and if Sony wants to win back some of the audience's goodwill, confirming Ghost of Tsushima 2 as soon as possible would be a really smart move if the game is indeed quote-unquote pretty much ready. After I completed Ghost of Tsushima 1, the thing that stuck with me the most was how amazing the story was, how it perfectly set the stage for the next game, and how Jin Sakai's actions will have serious repercussions for the gameplay and story and just his overall development for the next game. There was a ton of tough choices that Jin Sakai had to make, and it just gets me really excited to think where the story is going to take us. But one thing that I think is pretty much confirmed at this point is Ghost of Tsushima 2 will have a much grittier tone than the first game, which is honestly really wild considering how Ghost of Tsushima is already an insanely gritty game, but with how the original ended, it totally makes sense. Brief spoiler alert for those of you that have not played Ghost of Tsushima 1, I recommend playing that game before you watch this section of the video. However, if you just skip to the next chapter, you're totally clear. The ending of Ghost of Tsushima 1 left us with a choice of either killing Lord Shimura, our uncle, or sparing his life. The first choice is Jin honoring his uncle's request for a warrior's death. He reaffirms his samurai roots, but ultimately sacrifices their relationship, with Jin inevitably fully embracing the ghost persona and continue in the next game living as a hunted outlaw. On the other hand, sparing Lord Shimura, Jin defies his uncle's request and chooses mercy while also rejecting the samurai code. This means he will essentially walk away forever living as a fugitive, marked by the Shogun's forces, but also hunted by Lord Shimura himself. So both endings for Jin are essentially a double-edged sword. They both set up an interesting sequel in terms of story and conflict. In the kill ending, Jin might deal with the guilt of killing his uncle, while while also seeking a path of redemption while remaining as a ghost. Now, regardless of the scenario, this is going to upset the Shogun even more, but this time Jin would be a symbol of rebellion against the regime. Throughout the sequel, he could gather allies and possibly start a larger uprising against the Shogun. Imagine the game starts and you're getting hunted by elite warriors sent by the Shogun, and their goal is to either capture or kill you. The game might start with him in hiding, and the gameplay could be more focused on survival while being hunted at every turn. Now, with the spare ending, I think this is probably going to be the canon one for the next game, as I truly felt like Jin did not want to kill his uncle. Like, he had no intentions of doing it. You hear him say that throughout the game as well, but this would also start with Jin living in exile as a ghost. There could be a possible reconciliation with his uncle, and rather than being against each other, there is a second invasion that happens, and it would leave Jin and his uncle banding together to stop the new threats while also navigating the political implications of Jin's survival. I have a feeling that the Shogun is going to want Jin dead, and he will send everything and anything at him until that is done. And despite Lord Shimura's allegiances, he could defect like Jin and help him defeat the Shogun, which could ultimately lead to Lord Shimura's death. Jin Sakai is then upset about that situation. He gathers a group of people with the goal of taking down the Shogun's regime and killing the Shogun himself. So whether or not Jin embraces the darkness or seeks redemption, his story arc is about to be insane, and it has the potential to be better than the first one, with all of the new adventures and challenges that the beautiful and troubled world of Tsushima will provide. Now, when it comes to the gameplay for Ghost of Tsushima 2, there is a lot of ways that the gameplay could improve upon the original game. There's almost certainly going to be a bunch of new stances for the combat system, and the returning stances from the first game will likely be adjusted to make them feel fresh and new. The map is also going to be much bigger, since the conflict will cover more of the mainland Japan, it's rumored. Now, some have also suggested that the original game's map is going to return, and while I tend to agree with those theories, although I think it's going to look a lot different, and like I said, I think there's going to be a bigger focus on mainland Japan. I'm expecting the open world of Ghost of Tsushima 2 to be handled similarly to the open world of Spider-Man 2, where most, if not all, of the original game's map returns, but it's heavily expanded upon with new locations and adjusted to better suit the story. I also don't want the team over at Sucker Punch to try to reinvent the wheel, change the UI too much. They need to keep that minimalistic approach where the game's world was your guide and not just some random UI elements. If you played Ghost of Tsushima, then you know that the combat in that game is amazing. The thoughtful approach to attacking and defending, the amazing stealth system, and unique combat stances that help you take down certain enemy types, it's all truly remarkable. The combat in Ghost of Tsushima is the best thing the gaming has seen in a long time, and I'm expecting them to build on that and improve that in the sequel. As you know, Ghost of Tsushima has 5 stances: stone, water, wind, moon, and ghost. For the sequel, I'm hoping that most of the combat we learned in the first game will be in the default stance. Then they give us 4 to 5 additional new stances. Now, what these stances are will remain a mystery, but some of the new combat abilities I'm expecting are things like dual wielding katanas and a staff that will help us with certain types of enemies. Now, as for what the actual stances will be, one theory that I've seen is that the next game will draw inspiration from Japanese mythology with animal inspired stances. For example, we could see a crane stance for agility and precise strikes, and a tiger stance that could focus on raw power. Regardless of the direction they take with the stances, I'm hoping they build upon where Jin was at as a warrior in the last game. I don't want it to be a situation where our character plays like they're a new warrior. Jin has gone through a lot. He defeated Khotun Khan and stopped the Mongol invasion. He's defeated Lord Shimura himself, and that should reflect in the gameplay. He is the Ghost of Tsushima, and his combat ability should reflect that in the next game. Now, in addition to Ghost of Tsushima 2, there are a number of rumors floating around that the first Ghost game is going to be getting a PC port in the near future, most likely the director's cut version on the PC. There's actually a bit of evidence to support that. As a part of the big Insomniac hack, it was confirmed that Sony has gotten a lot more open-minded when it comes to first-party PC ports, and it seems that as long as the project costs less than 30 million, it can be greenlit with a simple email. Games like Wolverine and Spider-Man 2 are confirmed to already have PC ports in the works, and since Ghost of Tsushima's overall budget was much lower than many first-party PlayStation games, a PC port should be in the works or is possibly already even ready for launch when the time is right. But let's put the coping aside. We still haven't gotten a Bloodborne PC port yet, so regardless of how much a game succeeds or is beloved, it's ultimately up to Sony to do regardless of the numbers. Now let's talk about the release date for Ghost of Tsushima 2. If you ask me, I think all of the evidence suggests that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to launch within the next year or two. I'm thinking Sony will announce this game either in early 2024 or maybe during these summer showcases, and then launch it in late 2024 or early 2025. Sony usually isn't the kind of company that has a quick turnaround of announcement to launch on their first party games, but given the circumstances and everything that we know about Ghost of Tsushima 2, I genuinely think that things are going to be different for this one, and we're going to be playing it a lot sooner than most people think. Now, that's not even considering the movie or the PC port. It's unlikely that Sony wants to launch the Ghost of Tsushima movie and Ghost of Tsushima to be released too close to each other, because that may make one of the other seem less special. Normally, I'd tell you that Ghost 2 is going to launch around 2026 or 27, since we haven't gotten an official trailer just yet, but given everything we talked about in this video, I actually think we may be closer than that. Everything we know about this game seems to suggest that Sony is cooking up a very quick marketing campaign, similar to what Bethesda did for Fallout 4, where they announced the game and then released it just a few months later for maximum hype. We know this game has been in development for quite some time, so if the insider that said Ghost 2 is pretty much ready, I'm expecting the reveal to be imminent. But what do you guys think about all this? Do you think Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to have a quick turnaround, or do you think Sony is going to keep sitting on it for a few more years? Well, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section, guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you've enjoyed my coverage, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.